Good evening. Welcome to the Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting, August 20th, 2013. We will begin with the salute to the flag, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mrs. Poland, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Mr. Snipes?
Here.
Mr. Harvey?
Here.
Mr. Dents? Mr. Rocco?
Here.
Mr. Dents is not feeling well. Something came on him relatively suddenly, so he will not be here this evening. Wish him speedy recovery. Mr. Gray has gotten us got me the sign-in sheet for public comment, which is our first agenda item. We'll start with Roland Kenny.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Roland Kenny, Falls Township. Last month, I said a few things which I got off Hennessy, O'Reilly, and Governor Huckabee's show. Anything I said was what they said. And if I embarrass anybody, I apologize. And that's all I'm going to say tonight. Good night. God bless you. Say, you don't need to cop for me.
Okay. Donna and Roland Ruther. Evening.
I'm Donna, and this is my husband, Roland Ruther. And we've been residents of Falls Township for 33 years. The past 13 of those years, we've lived in Vermilion Hills.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we're here tonight is to request speed bumps to be put up on Vermilion Drive, especially by the playground. Please forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous here. This is my son, Wes. On Monday, July 15th, 2013, when he was apparently going too fast on his motorcycle and failed to navigate a turn on Vermilion Drive by Vickard Lane, he was in a motorcycle accident. Thank God he didn't hit anyone, but he smashed into a sign and ended up in the trees. I cannot imagine the nightmares that the teenager went to Wes's side must be having at seeing such a horrific sight. And also at the neighbor and his wife that wanted so desperately to take care of my son Wes, but they were instructed by the police officer not to move him for his own safety. Now try to imagine the rage that consumed me when I found out from the same neighbor that knew Wes and wanted to care for him. He told my husband and I that the neighbors have been trying for years to get speed bumps put in an effort to get people to slow down, but they have been unsuccessful. Vermilion Way and Vermilion Drive are the main cut-through streets, and people speed through there all the time. I'm going to take a minute right now, and I would really like to commend Officer Richard Krotz. I don't want to say his, I'm not sure how you say it, but it's Krotz, for his brilliant efforts since this accident. He's been trying to get people to slow down. Apparently, he has issued numerous speeding tickets in the area since the accident. He's going to be my hero. Wes is already a hero because through organ donation, he has saved the lives of 4 other people. Let's not let him down now, but hopefully through his death, we could possibly save the lives of others by making people slow down and also come to a stop at the stop sign. I thank you for your consideration, and I beg you to move forward on this issue as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss, obviously.
Thank you.
I just want to say that they had the same problem in Oak Tree on Oak Tree Drive where the ball fields are at.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing, it's a cut-through street, and they couldn't do anything about it. Even stop signs didn't work. So they did put speed bumps in. And I have a friend that lives on that road, and that cut the traffic down to speeding down to nothing. You can't go over the speed bumps fast. I'd like to ask the board to think about this, talk about it, and make the right decision, and to put the speed bumps in, if you would.
Okay. Certainly, it's something we can ask our police and our traffic engineer to look at and do some more work. As you said, the officers are already out there, but there's other steps we can take to sort of do a deeper study of the speeds and traffic patterns on that road. But thank you. Thank you very much.
I stop there every night, excuse me, for a half hour. It's a little memorial there. Cars that fly up and down that road is unbelievable. Stop there for 15 minutes in the morning, and you have the same thing. People just fly down. Once you make that bend, it's a straightaway.
Right.
And people just, they fly down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just happened July 15th, she said. Like a month ago. Wow.
Sandy Johnson, is it? Ms. Johnson, are you here for the certificate of
I'm item
appropriateness?
number 2. So.
Okay, that's fine. It's all right. I recognized you're from the neighborhood. Edgar Latuma?
Good evening, everybody. I just want to clarify, last month I told about the soccer fields. They look very nice. But this week I went to walk myself inside the soccer fields, and I understand now they're going to come back and fix, because a lot of spots, number 5, what is the lights? Under the lights, there's a lot of look like they lost. The side is looks bad. Before the guys you take, when finish everything, I hope they're going to come back and do that, because a lot of spots when it's missing the side is very dangerous for the kids playing soccer, or for the referees doing there. It's very dangerous to crack the knee or the ankle.
Right.
That is only thing I want to say, and again, thank you. They look fantastic, the soccer fields.
Okay. Yeah, I think, Mr. Sullivan, you said the next month, I think, or October. When is it?
Yeah, they should be out there sometime during September.
September,
to fill
take a
in,
look.
fill in the holes he's talking about.
Okay.
And around the field too, when they didn't put any, I think they put seeds, but all is crab grass. So
Yeah.
the seeds didn't grow good.
Yeah, I noticed that last night, so we'll have them take a look at that too.
Yeah, the area outside the playing field is going to be redone as well in September.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Guido Mariani?
Good evening. My question is, why do we spend millions of dollars to provide facilities to accommodate what I consider to be an insignificant number of our residents? We're probably approaching $1.5 million right now on the boat ramp, which probably has a problem maintaining its own maintenance. And the fact that there's already an overabundance of access to the river in our area, a senior center whose cost now exceeds $1.3 million to accommodate less than 1% of our residents. When we could have had and should have had a community center, and I stood here multiple times, said we should have sold that site, built a community center that everyone in the township could use. Now, the other thing is, I don't know why we're spending well over $100,000, which is what it's going to come to, for a fishing pier to accommodate really an insignificant number of people who are going to use it. We already have 30 fishing lakes in Bucks County alone, not including Montgomery, Delaware, or any other county. So to me, I think a better use of our money would be to invest in something like a vacuum leaf truck that I've asked for before, that accommodates 100% of our residents, rather than provide and continue to provide these accommodations for an insignificant number of people who would use them. Now, the cost of vacuum service is well within our budget, this budget that we have right now, and if it's properly administered, we could provide this service to every street in Falls Township without adding a penny to the budget that we already have. You have a problem trying to find out how to do it, I'll be glad to show you how to do it. You don't have to add a dime to this. This services everybody in this township, not a handful of people. Maybe we should spend our money to accommodate more people than the way we're spending it now. Thank you, consider that.
Sure.
Leaves are starting to fall.
Tom Urbanski?
What he wants us to buy, a leaf tree.
Good evening, everyone, especially good evening to the Board of Supervisors. At the last Falls Township Board of Supervisors meeting, it was announced a proposed ordinance change is being discussed that would redefine Ordinance 2010-08, which is the amendment to Chapter 138 of Housing Standards about parking vehicles on property. It further appeared from the video I looked at, the purpose was to allow for the code enforcement people to be able to cite residents that either have inoperative or unlicensed motor vehicles parked on their lawns. We want to clarify that and bring some history up here. I also further believe that Ms. Gallagher expressed very clearly this new proposed ordinance would affect all vehicles, including campers and trailers, which is really a very broad expansion of the current policy. There was additional comments about junked cars being eyesores on lawns, need to update laws and things. But everything kept wording about unregistered and unlicensed vehicles. Well, I want to point on that. I have not been able to find a copy of this proposed ordinance yet. I went to the township last week and they didn't know anything about it, so I know it hasn't been published and I don't know if it's even been, the language has even been drafted. But from that meeting, it's not clear to me, it's not clear to anybody else I've talked to, if the Board of Supervisors is considering an ordinance that affects motor vehicles only, or everything that is identified as a trailer or a vehicle at the last meeting. Falls Township already has existing code that may help address some of these complaints that I think you're hearing. If some of these complaints are about unregistered or unlicensed motor vehicles parking on property other than the driveway, we already have a code, 203-18, which specifically says you cannot park an unlicensed or unregistered vehicle in any right-of-way on a township road. Well, that goes from the curb to 20 feet in the property. If this is where some of these complaints are falling, why not use this ordinance to cite people and to effectuate corrective action? That's it. It's a partial answer. I just want to summarize by saying Falls Township adopted the International Property Maintenance Code. Very specifically, 302.8 is really clear, really clear. There's good reasons why this code exists. A lot of communities have adopted it. The community I used to live in adopted it, and Falls Township has adopted it. Before acting on any broader or more restrictive change, please consider amending the existing ordinance 2010-08. Remove the term premises. Just take that one word out. Require the one inoperative or unlicensed motor vehicle, you know, the hobby car, to be parked on a driveway or in the garage. I respectfully request that the Board of Supervisors evaluate if this action may resolve the residents' complaints before a broader action is taken that will affect many residents. Thank you.
Okay. I'll let you know, Mr. Urbanski. Appreciate you coming out and voicing your thoughts. I think you actually emailed us too, I believe, right?
I haven't emailed on this one.
Oh, okay.
But we were in contact before on the Viking issue.
We have, it's the issues generated a lot of debate amongst the five of us as well, and so we're, it's why you don't see it on tonight's agenda. It's something we are kind of looking back into, so, but I think your comments are helpful, so thank you very much. Catherine Ross?
Good evening. I'm Catherine Ross, longtime Falls Township resident. I'm here to address the same pending ordinance. There are a whole lot of people of Falls Township who have extra vehicles because their kids are driving their own cars or because they bring a work vehicle home at night. They also have recreational vehicles, boats, and trailers they keep at their homes. Some are in the driveways, some are on the grass, some are neatly tucked along the side of the backyard, in the side yard or the backyard. The majority of them cause no problems for neighbors or the neighborhoods. When you talk to neighbors about the potential of limiting their ability to use their properties to do these activities that they're used to doing, their reaction is pretty much uniformly, but it's my yard. You mean I can't put my stuff in my own backyard? I mean, Mr. Dent's reaction was pretty much the same thing. My concern is that these good people could wake up one day finding themselves to be in violation of this new ordinance. People like Mr. Dent's with his little utility trailer and his towable barbecue, and others with well-maintained equipment, well-maintained yards, if the board enacts an overly broad change to the existing ordinance that was discussed at the last meeting. And personally, and I think for a lot of people, it's no particular comfort to be told in advance that the ordinance will be selectively enforced. Selective enforcement based on what standard? I mean, Mr. Bennett's a wonderful guy, but it may not always be Mr. Bennett, or it may be a neighbor-on-neighbor dispute that will be selected by the neighbors and may not be motivated by the technical violation at all. Taken to its extreme, we may as well say, let's have everyone be in violation, and when our local government thinks we need a different look, we'll cite you and then you'll know. That's not good government. It's not a well-written ordinance, and I really think you can do better. First, take ample time and inform yourselves. Learn if we really need any changes to clean up the offending situations that are known to you. The details are not known to us. In December 2010, there were 2 board meetings dedicated to the predecessor of this ordinance and what we have right now, during which Mr. Clark opined that the existing code as it was amended at that time was really all we needed, and that the sections of the adopted whatever the big code was that we adopted, the international one, pertaining to trash and rubbish, were sufficient to deal with these situations. Now, it might be more difficult to enforce those provisions, but isn't that really preferable to a broader ordinance that takes away the rights of so many non-offending people to continue to use their property as they have in the past? I would ask you to do only the minimum of what needs to be done and do no harm to the rest of us. It's a signal to rethink when people like Mr. Dent's get caught in the broad net of a proposed change. It's too bad he's not here tonight. I have copies of the minutes from the 2 December meetings in 2010 when the most recent changes were made, and the explanations were given by participants at that time, including legal counsel. These and the video of the discussions are also available on the Township website for both meetings. Please let us know what you plan to do and why. There's a big difference in the use of the word vehicle and the use of the word motor vehicle. And then give ample notice to residents so they can attend meetings to provide feedback. Scheduling the matters for peak vacation weeks or the beginning of September when it's difficult because people are all focused on their kids getting back to school is not going to give them the opportunity to give you the input that you're looking for. And don't advertise this in the newspapers about cleaning up junk cars if it's also going to impact our ability to keep boats and trailers and campers and other trailer hitched vehicles on our properties. Call it what it is before you enact the changes rather than afterwards. It would just really be a much better process that way, and people will then know. Maybe there's an education process that becomes necessary. I would hate to see people move neatly stored vehicles from the side and backyard to their front yard and enlarge their driveways so they can all be on the driveways, and then we'll have rows of vehicles on the driveways, less grass, and everybody can see, and then we might be in compliance with this new ordinance if it's not done very carefully. So I thank you for your consideration, and because we do have new folks here from who were here before, I do have sets.
Thank you.
Of the notes. I know you're busy tonight.
It's okay. Thank you.
But this helps.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Maybe she's upset.
Andy Dell?
I won't talk too much on a subject, but that's what I wanted to discuss also. I have received a few phone calls from people asking me what is the definition of what they're looking to remove, and I didn't really know what to tell them. I said it sounds like it's a sort of a vast net to capture all vehicles, because these were all licensed and registered vehicles, if I'm not mistaken. These weren't just hobby cars that haven't been unregistered. This included registered and insured vehicles and trailers, campers, and whatnot. But I didn't know how far this ordinance went. I didn't read the ordinance that you guys were proposing, but I didn't see it on the list tonight, so I assumed you either dropped it or going to bring it up at some future meeting. Did you have some timeline that you were looking at?
We don't have a timeline. No, I mean, as I said, the board members we've been sort of discussing that, well, a lot of issues, but that issue back and forth, just our own thoughts and concerns about trying to do what you've heard this evening and what you're talking about doing too. I mean, we obviously want to do something to help alleviate a problem of, as I said, the nightmare scenario of the guy that had the project car in his yard,
Yes.
the tree grew up through the engine block.
And I'm sure there's a way to word,
that's obviously,
an ordinance to deal with those specific situations. But most of the people I talk to are people who basically are on Trenton Road, South Dulles Boulevard, that pull their cars off the road so they don't get mowed down. Because if you leave your car on the shoulder of the road, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to be missing a mirror or part of your door. So, because people fly down these roads, and with the texting and the phone calls, they have a tendency to wander across the road. So I wanted to ask about that. And I also wanted to touch on the website. Why are we missing meetings going all the way from March till now on the video availability? Why are there no videos available from March till now?
it's a variety of issues. Mr. Gray?
Yes, there's several issues. Mr. Markey is aware of the situation. We've had some technical difficulties along the way. He is working on getting those restored. We're hoping to have those resolved shortly.
Yeah, one issue was a piece of machinery, actually, the big kind of piece of equipment that he uses broke down, and he was trying to get another one, and they're not cheap. There were issues with Verizon. There's also some debate. We're having some discussion about going to sort of a different service for our website, to manage our website, in which case loading meetings might have to be done like a second time if you take all the time to load them once. Loading a meeting takes him roughly how long?
It does take a while to do the meeting, render it, I think he refers to it as, and then it does take time to get on the website as well. It does take time, I'm not sure.
Usually, I mean, Mr. Markey's not here this evening because he worked overnight until 5 a.m. this morning here, but usually if he's here at this meeting, he will stay here and won't leave here until like the sun's up.
Because I told the people just go on Falls' website, and I said, you can go watch. I said, they should have that meeting posted by now, and they called me and said there's no meetings since March. I was unaware of it, and I don't generally watch them, but they told me that, and I went on today, and March was the last available meeting. So, so this month, next month, what are we looking at?
We're not. Well, it's something we're not sure of right now. Just as he's working on it, it's going to get done, but it's
after the elections.
I don't know.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right. Alan Episcopo?
Good evening. A couple weeks ago, I have a business in Falls Township on New Falls Road. I was notified by engineers to meet them out at my place of business, and they were talking about a proposal of putting a sidewalk down New Falls Road, and he was discussing about putting the sidewalk on the side of the road of my business and a couple of businesses right next to myself.
Right.
And I inquired about why he wasn't putting the sidewalk on the other side of the street, where halfway down the street there is a sidewalk already. And I said, wouldn't it be less expensive for the township to take advantage of the sidewalk on the other side of the street and just add to it and go the rest of the way wherever they want to go, down to St. Joe's Workers' School or down to the highway? And he really couldn't give me an answer on that. And I said, only thing it would do, it's jeopardizing the businesses on our side of the street. It's taking part of our parking lot up, We have signs that are close to where the sidewalk would be, so it creates a problem for 3 or 4 different businesses, where on the other side of the street there is nothing. And I just don't understand where it'd be less expensive for the township to put a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street where there's only grass and trees than interfere with 3 or 4 businesses and cause them a problem, which, you know, business is tough as it is today. And taking up your parking lot and possibly interfering with your signs, I don't see where it's beneficial to the township or the businesses. So I really would appreciate it if they would look into it a little bit and take a little consideration into how hard it is for businesses to exist today.
Right.
I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I can let you know, Mr. Episcopal. A couple of the issues. First, the construction that's going on that side of the road with the daycare center that's going in. They're putting in their own sidewalk, so there actually is going to be one for a good stretch of that road right in front of them. That was one of the considerations, was that would be a stretch of road that the township's not paying for, that's getting put in anyway. Because there's curbing on your side of the road, that's going to make the sidewalk safer than on the other side of the road where there is no curbing and where we can't put any in. That was a consideration as well. The board members are aware of the fact that there are a couple of businesses, you know, yourselves and others, and we've asked our engineer to try and find if there's a way. We're not even sure if we're going to do it yet, quite frankly. Is there a way for us to do it that's economical, that does the least amount of interference with what your business and other businesses are going to be doing, and provides a safe walking route for people that are all going to be on that road. As I said, it's not something that, we don't even know what it would cost at this point. The engineers are really just kind of looking at it. We authorize them to kind of put a plan together so we can get an idea of what it's going to look like. But anything, we want to include you and the other business owners. Once we have an idea of what it might be, we do want to try and include you as much as we can, just to see how we can work with you and not moving your signs, and trying to work with you as much as we can and see if it's something we can agree to do together. So,
well, I really would appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Okay, those are the names we have on the list. Any other people interested in speaking this evening? No? Okay. All right, we'll move to agenda item number 2, which is a certificate of appropriateness for 65 Old Locust. We have 3 certificates of appropriateness this evening for homes that are in the historic area of Fallsington. 65 Old Locust, 33 Lower Marsville, and 16 Main Street. I know there's at least one property owner here for one of the homes. The projects look, I think, rather simple. I believe there's nobody here for Main Street, correct?
Correct.
Right, there's nobody here for Main Street. But obviously Ms. Johnson's here for 65 Old Locust. I'm not sure if there's anybody here for 33 Main Street. I wonder if we could just sort of do these together rather than having 3 totally separate discussions. Board members have any comments or questions regarding any of these proposals?
No, they were all, I'm sorry, they were all reviewed by the Historic Board?
Yeah.
They were okay with them, right?
I think they were all approved unanimously, if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken. The Historic Review Board looked at all these and approved them.
What do they do? Like, what do we ask the...
Historic Review Board just really kind of looks, to maintain at least the outward structure. I mean, what you do on the inside is up to you, but if you're buying a home in a historic district, there are some restrictions that go on to what you can do. So they look to make sure that, if there are windows that are going to be put in, that they sort of have that look, the older kind of sort of look to it. Colors of paint, types of siding, types of roofing materials, type of the structure, the structure itself. Is it going to match the historic nature of the area? That's what the Historic Review Board looks at. And there are a couple of the members on there, Mr. Bennett, who's our zoning officer, and at least 2 of the other members live in historic Fallsington itself, if not all 3 of the other members, actually. So they obviously have a vested interest in keeping their own small piece of Falls Township looking good. Any other comments or questions for any of these?
No.
No? Okay. right, so I guess we'll take them one at a time here. The certificate of appropriateness for 65 Old Locust is for exterior painting of the residence. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The certificate of appropriateness for 33 Lower Marsville is for the construction of a detached garage. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And 16 Main Street, a three-season room with an electric oven, which I'm guessing is sort of like a fireplace, over an existing concrete foundation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Johnson's here, so congratulations. Okay. We are doing a switch here. We have a few land development projects, and one of these projects we're going to do ahead of the other. We're going to do waste gas, I believe, minor subdivision first.
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Hecker's here for that. So this would be agenda item number 6 we're doing now. Okay. All right, Mr. Gray?
Yes, this is waste gas, a minor subdivision located at 450 New Bold Road, tax map parcel number 13-028-088-002. The proposal for the project includes subdividing a 2.42 acre portion of the property. Representing the applicant tonight is Mr. Tom Hecker.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Members of the board, good evening. On behalf of the applicant, we're here tonight, as indicated by Mr. Gray, for your consideration of a minor subdivision plan. With me tonight is Kyle Kloman, who's president of Waste Gas Fabricating, which is a metal fabricating business which has been a member of the Falls Township business community for about 26 years. Also, Phil Kashner, who is our engineering consultant from Showalter. During the last 26 years, Kyle has been able to grow the business and has done a great job of putting money back in, buying expensive equipment to meet the demands of the customers, and hiring people to handle that equipment. Today, Waste Gas employs about 80 people, so it's a great member, as I indicated, of the business community. We appeared before the board back in June of last year in connection with a small expansion. It was a waiver of land development request, which the board approved. And at that time, I explained that Kyle has really been a victim of his own success, because the existing structure that they're in was really bursting at the seams, and that expansion that was done at that time was really done to address some new, larger equipment which had been purchased and some more efficient operation in the interior. And I think I may have mentioned, but I will tell you tonight, that probably for about the last 10 years or so, Kyle has seen this day coming, that eventually he was going to need to make this building bigger than it even was with the last addition, and reached out to Conrail 10 years ago in connection with the interest in them selling a portion of their property. It's about a 142-acre parcel, which is behind this property, for the purpose of squaring his property off so he can square off his building and even make this a better operation than it currently is. And I'm happy to tell the board we're here tonight because Kyle has been able to enter into an agreement with Conrail to purchase a 2.42 acre parcel from Conrail out of that now existing 142 acres. So the purpose of this request tonight is just simply to ask your approval for minor subdivision that would allow Kyle to complete the purchase from Conrail of that 2.42 acre parcel added to his existing parcel, and there'll be 2 more steps after tonight if this is approved. The next step would be to submit a rezoning request, and that has been included in the resolution. The Conrail property is zoned, I believe, light industrial, and we would rezone, with the township's permission, the existing property that Kyle has and the 2.42 acre parcel, all under one zoning classification, which is planned industrial park zoning. And then I fully expect that at some point in a not too distant future after that, you will see another land development plan that will add to the existing building, and it'll make this operation even more streamlined and actually maybe a little busier and some additional jobs, you know, to help this company continue to grow and provide the fine services and products that they currently do. So that's really the nature of this application. The plan shows the area to be taken by the conveyance from Conrail to my client. Once that settlement occurs, we will file the rezoning request to have everything under one zoning classification. And when that's all done, then we'll probably be back to you with a land development request to further expand the building. Any questions on the application?
Okay. Thank you for going through the history and hopefully the future.
We hope.
With waste gas. Comments or questions from board members for Mr. Hecker? Mr. Galway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, thank you. So the new lot we would be looking at, owned by Waste Gas, would be 6.88 acres.
That's correct.
So the 2.42 acres is moving from one owner to the other, and the new owned by Waste Gas is 6.88.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Rocco?
So as for the rezoning, you're basically asking the new parcel to be zoned as the old parcel is,
We're not doing
parcel.
Yes, we're not doing that yet because in order to do that, he
You
has
own
to
it.
complete closing and own the property. But I think in the resolution, which you've seen, we've agreed that we'll file that application within 60 days of this evening because I believe, Kyle, we have a deadline of somewhere September 6th to close with Conrail. So shortly after that, we'll be in a legal position to file that application. Okay. I would also point out to the board that in the resolution, the conditions that are set forth are acceptable. There are 2 waiver requests in that deal with the balance of the Conrail property, providing the existing features and site capacity calculations. We don't want to get into the balance of the Conrail property. You'll see all of that when we come in with our land development plan for this particular property. So that's the nature of those 2 waivers. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I did another question. Could you actually show us the 2 lots as they now exist and then the proposed changes? Do you have them right here?
This darkened line here is the parcel, I believe, Phil, why don't you come up here so I don't misstate this. The existing line. This darkened line is the land being acquired from Conrail, which would then be added to that existing line, which would be the new parcel. And you can see, I mean, this plan's a good illustration because it shows the existing building of the way that building sort of zigzags.
Right up to the edge.
So the idea, obviously, is to expand it, square it off, and try to maximize the use of that land.
Maybe you could quickly show on the other so that people can see what we're talking about. Thank you.
This is the existing line. This is the area being added to this parcel.
Can we ask the engineer and solicitor whether they see any issues?
No issues at this time?
We have no issues either, Mr. Snipes.
Thank you.
So this will basically take your property to the road that goes back to the mulch pile?
On Y Lane.
Yeah, my lane, right. And then where does it stop? Right at the bridge, the underpass? Okay.
Yes, right to the underpass. Right to the underpass.
Okay. All right, so any public comment needed? See no hands. Okay, it's a pretty straightforward presentation and plan. This would be Resolution 13-19. -19, thank you. Okay, and the resolution does include the 2 waivers that Mr. Hecker had mentioned, which makes sense. Conrail owns quite a chunk of property. It's no sense having you go through to all the site capacity calculations for all of that when you're only taking 2 acres off their hands. Is there a motion then to approve Resolution 13-19?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Gentlemen, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes.
I'll try to get you that basin someday.
What? I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Very good. All right, next time.
Okay, next item on our agenda, going back to item 5, Gilleste final land development was a mixture here, I guess, a little bit of preliminary and a little bit of final, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. My name is John Koopman. I'm here representing Gilleste Realty, Inc., which is the applicant before you for item 5. And I have several gentlemen here from Gilleste, and I'm sure they can answer any questions that you would have. You may be familiar with Gilleste Operation. They're a specialty chemical manufacturer located in Phase 1 of the U.S. Steel Industrial Park on Steel Road. Been located there for over 10 years, Barry, and employ currently approximately 100 people. I'm with me, Barry Arkles. Barry is the president of Gilleste. And Matt Suits is here also, and Kevin King, all from Gilleste, and Bill Reardon from Bowler, who is the project engineer. And just to follow up on what Mr. Harvey indicated, what we're here for tonight is an expansion. We're seeking a land development approval for the expansion of the existing Gilleste facilities that are located on Steel Road. And what's being proposed here is an expansion of various aspects of the facilities that is probably going to take place over several years, maybe 5 years, 10 years, or even more. Phase 1 is a new R&D building, and we're asking for the board's approval for land development for both preliminary and final approval for Phase 1, which is the R&D building. The plan also proposes a drum storage and tank storage area and a manufacturing facility as phases 2 and 3. We're seeking preliminary approval for those phases 2 and 3, and we've discussed that with Mr. Sullivan, and the idea would be if we obtain preliminary approval for those facilities, we would then subsequently, when we're ready to build those, come back to the board for final approval for phases 2 and 3. Phase 1, we're seeking both preliminary and final approval because I think that facility we'd like to start building as soon as possible. Is that correct, Barry? That is correct. Now, I think many of you may be familiar with the Gilleste facility. Again, it's been here for 10 years, but if you'd like a little more information about what Gilleste does, Barry would be happy to provide that to you. I think we were here probably about 3 years ago for a small expansion for Gilleste. So you may be familiar with it, but if you have any questions about Gilleste, Barry would be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthwhile. It is a company that obviously is growing, and we're happy to see that, as I'm sure you are. But it is, especially because of where it is, tucked away, definitely I think a company most people don't know much about. So I think it would be worthwhile to hear a little bit about what the company does and I guess how that plays into what you're going to be doing in the future.
Barry, do you want to address that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd be pleased to. Gilleste is a specialty materials company, and we make what are called silicon or organometallic-based products that serve 4 industries. Number one, probably the one that if I pick example of where you'd see it in the marketplace, we sell into the medical device industry, most particularly the contact lens area. So if there's anyone you know that is wearing an AccuView contact lens or 2 of the other 5 major brands, there's a little drop of something we make that goes into that contact lens that makes it breathable so that it can function on the eye. We're also involved in silicon materials that help pharmaceutical companies put together different kinds of drugs. We were really excited about 2 months ago when Johnson & Johnson announced that they had a new generation of diabetes drug that works on a different basis rather than insulin control, actually moderates or allows glucose to be secreted through the kidneys. That drug, and pardon me if I don't have the name exactly right because it doesn't flow off your lips, it's called Invonica, has just been brought to the market in Europe and is expected to be brought to the market in the U.S. We sell one little chemical that puts one little atom into that molecule. We also make a material that goes into one layer of the chip that goes into the Xbox and the microelectronic area. So we're doing all very specialty materials. The employee base, we have, of the roughly 100 employees we have, about 15% are at PhD level, about 75% are bachelors or greater. So that's sort of the type of company we are. It's all very niche-based advanced materials. Any questions on that? I'd be glad to elaborate.
So I guess what, in terms of the R&D and the tanks that should be a tank farm, I guess when people think of tank farms, they think mostly of fuel oil and things like that. What kind of R&D? I mean, you're going to be doing some of your own or more of your own, or what kind of chemicals are you going to have in the tanks?
Okay, there's two different issues. I think in phase one, we're really only asking for the R&D building.
Right.
And the R&D building is roughly a 20,000 square foot building that initially will transfer about 15 people that are sort of shoehorned in our current facility over to the new facility. In the next 1 to 2 years, we'll probably hire an additional 15 people for R&D purposes. The tank requirements, by the scale of what you'd see for petrochemical or oil, they're relatively small. They are generally 10,000 gallon tanks, and these are now what is required to hold flammable solvents that are used to make our materials. Very little in the way of, I'll call it active raw material, but solvents that are used to make our products. And that would come in phase two as we expand our operations.
Okay. All right. I guess we probably should take these one at a time. The board members will notice we have two resolutions. One grants preliminary and final for phase one. The other grants preliminary only for phases 2 and 3. I guess, Mr. Koopman, if you wouldn't mind going through the phase 1, let's take a look at that first. Any issues there regarding review letter or the resolution, proposed resolution itself? Why don't you give us an idea of the waivers that have been requested here? I see.
You could do that way, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we have no issues with the review with the resolution. Everything in the resolution, including all the conditions of approval, are acceptable to Gilleste. For the first resolution, which is for the phase 1 approval, we are requesting 9 waivers. Most of these waivers result from stormwater or other related issues having to do with the flat nature of the property and the use that we have. It may be simpler if I have our engineer, Bill Reardon, refer to the waiver requests briefly and describe them for you.
It's fine.
I will. They're all set forth in the resolution and also in a review letter from T&M dated July 12, 2013. The Planning Commission reviewed all of the waivers and recommended approval of those waivers. But, Bill, do you want to go through the waivers very briefly? Sure. And if anybody wants to, Bill, to show you with the plan and go over the plan with you, he'd be happy to do that also.
Sure. Thank you.
The first waiver is for relief from providing a traffic impact study for this development. The requirement is that if you're in excess of 50,000 square feet, so the buildings that we're proposing as part of this are less than that total. The second waiver is for the size of a driveway radius entering into the property, as well as a setback from the property line. The area in question is actually for this entrance radius here into the property. It's smaller than the 25-foot, and it's not an issue here because you don't have people necessarily coming around the cul-de-sac needing the larger radius to get in. And the setback is within the 12 feet, but we're essentially adjacent to Gilleste's own property. So they own this property here, so we're not further burdening anyone else from developing that piece. The next waiver is for areas for all parking areas to be constructed with curbing. We're providing a number of areas throughout the property adjacent to stormwater management basins that we're taking the curbing out, so we're encouraging the runoff from the pavement to sheet flow into the stormwater management areas to help reduce the amount of runoff as much as possible.
And that's currently the way the existing facility is designed, is that correct, Bill?
That's correct, yes. The next is for the size of the parking stalls to reduce them from 10 by 20 down to 9 by 18. Again, that's in an effort to maximize the number of spaces, but also reduce the amount of impervious coverage that we have on the property. The next is for a 5-foot setback from the property line for top and bottom of slopes. And that, again, is essentially adjacent where our grading and our improvements are next to the property that's already owned by Gillette. So it's within the 5 feet, but again, we're not causing any harm to a different property owner.
Are those are those the only areas where you're going within the 5-foot for setback for slopes, and just on that
That's
northern
correct.
part?
Yes, just up here. The other area of original concern was along this property line, but we've been able to adjust that improvements to get away from the property. The next easement, or I'm sorry, the next waivers for improvements located within an easement. The existing on the property, there's a rail easement that runs here. We have an existing driveway that crosses. We have a proposed driveway here that's for internal circulation. Then there's also another rail easement that's in the northwest corner. We have some parking and some stormwater improvements within that area. That section of the rail easement, again, it serves the balance of the park, but at this point, there's no plans for anyone to be able to put any rail in that area. And we've taken a look at it, and Gillette we can remove those pieces, those improvement areas, and still be in compliance with either stormwater or parking regulations. So we're essentially proceeding at our own risk with the understanding that it's very unlikely that rail would be extended in those areas.
Mm-hmm. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying that if that rail needs to be operational, you'll remove. Is that what you're saying?
These correct.
So maybe I can address it. No, that's one of the conditions of the resolution. First of all, if you're familiar with this area, there is existing rail in this area of the USX Industrial Park on both the south side, the east, and the west. On the north side, where we are, there's no rail. So if anyone that doesn't have rail now wanted to use rail, the shorter and easier way to access it would be either to the existing rail on the east adjacent to the main USX property, or as you come in right on off of Newford Mill Road on the Steel Road, there's rail on the parcel to the right, which I think is, which parcel is that? I think you were telling me, Kevin? Air Liquide. So anyone that would want to access rail, this would not be the way you'd go, because you'd have to cross the creek adjacent to our property. You'd go the other way. But just to be on the safe side, we've agreed as a condition that we would remove any facilities in the rail easement if anyone ever wanted to use rail in those facilities, even though it's extremely unlikely that that would ever happen.
Great, thank you.
I would just add that the waiver was granted under the same premises back in 2010 when we did our prior land development, where the board granted the easement, similar easement, in connection with that land development application. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome. Next waiver is for features within 200 feet of the property. Pretty standard waiver. We provided survey for all the areas that we need to show the improvements.
Bill, we've shown everything that Mr. Sullivan wanted to see, so it's really just a partial waiver there, I believe.
The last two waivers are for from stormwater management. The first one is for peak rate releases for the 1, 2, and the 5-year storm. We're meeting the requirements for the 100-year storm. And again, the site consists majority of what they call A soil, so they infiltrate very quickly, and the site is extremely flat. So our pre-development rates are in some cases 0. So any kind of development would have increase in the runoff. So we've tried to propose as much infiltration on the property as possible. We just can't get the flows down any more than what we've already done. But for the 100-year storm, we meet the requirements of the ordinance. And the last is for reinforced concrete pipe, and we're proposing to use plastic pipe in lieu of that. those are the waivers.
Okay. All right, so that's with the preliminary final for Phase 1. Comments or questions from board members, either for the applicant or for Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Galloway?
Just to Mr. Sullivan, you don't see any issues with this?
No issues with this, Mr. Galloway.
Thank you.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, the waivers you talked about reducing the dimensions of the parking stalls. Does that actually reduce the footprint of the entire parking lot, or you're just putting more parking spaces into the same footprint?
We are putting some additional parking spaces in there, but overall, it does reduce the footprint of the parking area.
Okay, thank you. And I think Mr. Sullivan already had the chance to say whether you have any questions with the runoff, the water management.
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rocco?
No, they were answered. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. And so this is just Phase 1. Comments or questions from the public? See no hands. Okay. So I believe, let's see. I think there was an issue with the fire marshal's letter, but I don't remember if that was for Phase 1 or Phase 2 and 3. I can assume, Mr. Koopman, that you'll be agreeable to meeting with the fire marshal and discussing any issues he has.
We do have a review letter from the fire marshal. I think it applies to the entire project, and basically what he's interested in is looking at the building plans, alarm plans, once we submit for building permit. I don't think he had any comments with respect to the land development plan that's before you. Okay. Obviously, he will need to review the building plans and all the other details once we submit a building permit plan.
Right. Okay, thank you. All right, so I've had board comment, and there's no public comment. This would be Resolution 1320. And this would grant preliminary and final land development for Phase 1 of the, what hopes to be a 3-phase project for Gilleste. And Mr. Sullivan, you have no issue with preliminary and final?
I have no issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion then to approve Resolution 13-20?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. And now looking at Phases 2 and 3, this is just preliminary.
And I would point out, Mr. Harvey, that the waiver requests are essentially, not essentially, they are exactly the same for the preliminary approval we're requesting for Phase 2 or 3. But again, we will be back before those are constructed, and you'll see the final plan, and we'll need to approve that before we actually move forward with that. Hopefully that'll be 3 years, 4 years down the road, if things continue to expand, as we hope they will be.
Right. We hope they do too, for your sake and ours.
Yes.
Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
No question.
Mr. Snipes?
No.
Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
Okay. The only question I have is for, and I'll open it up to either Mr. Sullivan or Mr. Clark. We're granting preliminary land development for a project that could take place in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years from now. Assuming, I mean, obviously, they have a very well-designed, well-drawn-out plan here. Is there an amount of change that would happen on this that would, I guess, trigger it to come back again for preliminary, or does this give them any kind of, does it lock them in, or is there's some wiggle room for them?
Provided the applicant...
Make sure you use a microphone.
When they... we've been moving it away because of some recent issues. Provided the applicant when they come back in with their final plans, provided that they are consistent with the preliminary plans that are submitted, they would not need to go through preliminary again. If they made any significant changes or expanded the scope, then they would need to come back for a preliminary. But as long as it is consistent with what you're approving this evening, they would not need to come back.
It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that was the only question I had. Comments or questions from public? See no hands. Okay, so this would be Resolution 13-21 and would grant preliminary land development for phases 2 and 3 of the Gillespie project. If there are no comments or questions from board members, bless you, Mr. Snipes.
Thank you.
If there are no comments or questions from board members, is there a motion to approve Resolution 13-21?
So moved.
Second.
Bless you.
Thank you.
We better vote quick before you sneeze.
I would have seconded, but sneeze got.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank
Good
you
luck.
very much. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Item number 7 is final land development, 80 Mile Lane, RST Bucks Group. I see Mr. Koopman is back up again.
Right. This is the facility I used to call the Treese Catering Facility, and some of you may be too young to remember it as that, but I remember it as the Treese facility. My wife taught school at Pennsbury for a few years, many years ago, when Pennsbury used to have a lot of its functions there. It's now owned by RST Bucks Group. Mike Patel is here with me. Mike is the owner of the property and his group, and John Richardson from Dumac Engineering is the engineer, and we're requesting a waiver from land development. And let me just give you a little background. Mike bought the property, 2006. And Mike, I think most of you, I assume all of you know where we're located. We're actually a neighbor of Waste Gas. Unfortunately, however, we're on the other side of the tunnel on my lane, and Mike has spent a lot of money fixing this property up. If you've been there and seen it, he's just built a nice facility there. But frankly, he's having difficulty making a go of it, mainly because of the location and the difficulty of the location. One of the examples is if somebody MapsQuest this location, you're likely to go to my lane in Morrisville and hit a dead end and can't get to the facility. If you're lucky, you find it, you go through the tunnel, you find the facility. So in order to encourage business and keep things going, Mike is requesting the ability to expand. There's 2 existing concrete decks or patios at the facility, one on either side. And what's being proposed here as part of the waiver of land, as the waiver of land development request, is to expand those concrete patios slightly and put a canopy over top so that the facility can handle more people, and in nice weather you can have people outside where you have the banquets and the weddings and other facilities. And we've been working with Jim Sullivan and your engineer with respect to the engineering issues, and I think we now have a plan and a resolution that we can work with, which would grant waiver of land development, which would allow us to do those expansions, put the canopy over top, and help with the economics of making a success out of this facility. If you'd like, John can go over the plan with you and show you, but essentially there's existing concrete patios. We're expanding those somewhat, putting a canopy over top. It's going to be an open canopy though, so there'll still be open aspects of the facility.
Right. Yeah, I think all of us are probably familiar with the property. I've been there since it's been renovated, and was there actually the other day just to take a closer look, at what was going on with this proposal. And certainly, I would agree that there definitely have been improvements made on the property overall, exterior and interior. So, do board members need just any more on the project itself, or should we just take a look at the waivers that are being requested here?
Yeah, actually, I would like to understand how much bigger the pad is that you're going to build.
John, do you want to address that? They're all within the parameters which allow for a waiver of land development. I think we've addressed that issue with your engineer, but in terms of the actual size, John can address this, I believe.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There's 2 existing covered porches or patios, one on each end of the building. The total existing square foot of those 2 is approximately about 1,200 square feet. Between the 2 ends, we would be adding 1,885 square feet of proposed porch area.
total, John?
That is total.
Total adding.
Total adding.
So you'd be around 3,000 or so square feet.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
The plan shows the existing and where the addition is and how it configures. It just extends the existing patios at the square footage that John just indicated.
Right.
And then we have the canopy.
Okay. Okay. Comments or questions?
Just for Mr. Sullivan, is there any issue with stormwater?
Not at this time. I mean, it's a little bit of a work in progress, but we're okay with their plan.
There are some in the resolution. There are some requirements for stormwater management. We will be constructing those, and obviously they'll be subject to the approval of your township engineer. So that's an issue that's addressed that we're prepared to comply with. There's a couple waivers. If you'd like me to go through those in the resolution, I can do those.
Well, usually the waiver of land development, it's generic waivers, street trees
Right.
and curbing and sidewalks, and those really aren't issues in that area because it's not really relevant. You've actually already got a decent number of trees in the area, so
Yes, we do.
on the property. So, any other comments or questions? Any public comment needed? Okay. All right, then, hearing no more issues regarding this, is there a motion then to approve, which is Resolution 13-22, which is a waiver of land development for RST Bucks Group?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay.
John.
Mike's in.
I need somebody to sign it.
Mike.
All right.
Put your John Hancock right.
Looking at agenda item number 8, which is discussion on Biles Island.
Something about your last.
Some time ago, the township did receive grant money from the state to do some work on Biles Island, which is a large island that will be coming to Falls Township from Waste Management at some point in the future when they're finished with it. There is a parcel of Biles Island, which I guess would be the northernmost piece, which is known as Phase 1. That is an area that Waste Management has finished with. They've been finished with for quite a while, and could potentially be coming to Falls Township roughly this time next year. And so our engineers, who we hired to take a look at this particular parcel of land to see what kind of things might be done on there, have put together a proposal. We're looking at a master site development plan using some of that money from the state, along with what will be open space money from the county, as well as some money from Falls Township, to do a study of this island to see what kind of work can be done. So Mr. Rosina and Ms. Besky are here. I guess I'll ask them to come forward just to touch on any, I guess, just the specifics of what the master site development plan will be doing. On this, part of it is on Phase 1. About, from your calculations, Mr. Rosina, about 40% of the work will be done just on Phase 1, and the remainder of the work will be done on the remainder of the island.
That's correct. The proposal you have before you will further the work on Biles Island, and will conduct feasibility and economic impact analyses as part of the requirements from the state grant. The proposal you have in front of you is a direct result of the grant that you applied for last year and received last year, about November of last year. The cost directly related to Phase 1 include the development of preliminary site plans. We're actually going to develop those for the entire island, and about 40% of that is directly attributable to Phase 1 of the project. A lot of that work has to do with the access and the traffic to get onto the island. As Supervisor Harvey has said, the project is also eligible for county funding through the Municipal Open Space Grant.
Okay. I think you had told us before, and I know in conversations, correspondence, I guess, with you and I, that someone could say, well, why don't we just focus on phase one? Why don't we just take the money we got from the state and focus only on phase one? Part of the requirement with the money from the state is that we do have to kind of look at the whole island. Why is that?
That's correct. The state's grant is a planning grant. They're interested in the entire 526 acres, which is the master site development plan, the master plan that was developed by the township, or the master plan that was developed for the township. We need to take that a little further to become a master site development plan. There's a bit of a difference, and the feasibility studies, the economic impact analysis are kind of the key components of that, is knowing what the revenues on the property could be and what the expenditures on the property could be moving forward. So they're looking at the entire island for the long range. Phase one is a component of that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Comments or questions for Mr. Rosina? Mr. Galloway?
No, I understand the reasoning behind having to study the whole island, and I have no questions at this point. Thank you.
Mr. Snipes?
Phase one, if we move ahead, when could it potentially be open for public use?
The proposal you have before you is for the preliminary plans. We have to develop final out of that, so you can have a construction bid document to get onto the island. That'd be a separate proposal because the DCNR grant doesn't cover final in a planning grant, so you'd have to go for a construction grant for that. Theoretically, if the county funds were available for phase one next summer this time, because they do require ownership, you could be under construction next fall.
And is one of the most complicated issues is access to the island?
That's correct.
Yes, and it seems like a huge obstacle. Could you comment a little bit on how we get around that obstacle?
The preliminary designs that we've looked at, there is an access road right at the moment, or an access driveway is what I'll call it, immediately adjacent to the Tyburn Road overpass. The plans that we're looking at now anticipate utilizing that as the primary access point initially. And the traffic studies that we're proposing to do during this phase will determine the feasibility of that and the cost implications, if there are any, of being able to turn onto that island. The alternate approach is to go further down Pennsylvania Avenue and do a jug handle into the Hall Road, coming across where Waste Management currently does a lot of their truck traffic. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to keep the traffic patterns completely separated. So there is a fallback position, but the Tyburn Road driveway location is what we're looking at right now.
So when I've been out to the island before, I think we've used the access that Waste Management also uses, correct? So the other, I'm not sure I've ever seen this other access you're talking about.
The primary access onto the island is through the KIPC. Right. So that's the Hall Road. The truck traffic utilizes that road through the KIPC to get from the landfill to Biles Island. That is the primary access point for Waste Management. The driveway that we've been using is an informal access. It's a driveway access that they would also utilize that front portion of it for their maintenance traffic, not their truck traffic, but their maintenance traffic. And there's a point there where we're thinking you're probably going to end up with a gate, a controlled gate, where Waste Management would be able to turn and the public would be not permitted to go down that road. So it would, again, separate the uses.
One last question. You said for a construction grant, we have to actually own that portion of the island. Is that right?
For the county grant. For the county grant funding, you have to own that portion of the island.
That's the open space money?
The open space funds.
Okay. And remind me again what maybe you don't know, what was mentioned earlier by you, Mr. Harvey, about Waste Management and the township, when that could possibly come to us.
Discussions we've had with Waste Management, they need to do some work, some mitigation work for the landfill they will be building. They need to set aside, because they're disturbing some wetlands, and they need to find wetlands nearby or create wetlands nearby to balance out whatever they're disturbing. And they are taking, I think it's
1.6.
Yeah, 1.6 acres. I was going to a little less than 2 acres around the lake, part of the lake on Biles Island, the phase 1 of Biles Island, to sort of create some wetlands. That they've said they're going to start that work hopefully in the spring. And so that really kind of precludes us doing very much in terms of construction until they're finished, and they'll be ready, hopefully, if permitting goes the way they want it to give us that small piece of the island roughly this time next year.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Rocco?
The grant was $92,000. What's the match on that? What do we need to match?
It's a 50% match minimum.
And it has to be. You said it has to be spent on the whole island.
Yes, the DCNR grant is for the entire 526 acres.
Also, you said that the access to the island would be shared. You're thinking through a gate for waste management?
The way we're looking at it at this point in the master plan, again, this is all subject to the traffic studies and the counts that we need to do for that area, would be the access off of Pennsylvania Road or Pennsylvania Avenue would be a shared access for their maintenance vehicles. That's not their primary access. They access most of their traffic comes through the Hall Road and comes up basically adjacent to the jug handle of Tyburn Road, the Tyburn Road overpass. That is for their smaller vehicles, their pickup truck kind of vehicles that are inspecting and maintaining and working some of that equipment. As you go down that road, 100 feet, the road takes a hard right. What we anticipate at this point is where that road takes a hard right, there would be a gate there, and the primary public access would continue straight. We got a little bit of fine tuning to get through that. Some additional survey work again that's proposed here to figure out how that's the logistics of that. But that's the basic intent. Yeah, that gate would be locked and controlled by waste.
Right. That was one thing I did notice, that there wasn't a estimated cost for that access. Is that correct?
That's correct, because until we have these studies, we don't know what those improvements are going to run.
Is it 100,000, 1 million?
Don't know.
Between 100,000 and a million.
It's between 100,000 and a million. It's between those two numbers.
There's always a range.
It depends. It's quite a range. It depends on the improvements and the site distances and the traffic counts for that jug handle coming off of Tyburn Road.
Right. So what we're looking to do tonight or in the near future would be to provide these studies, to get these studies done so we can have a better idea of the cost.
Exactly.
For access.
Exactly.
You also mentioned site plans. So we have site plans for the whole island at the end of this?
You will have a preliminary site plan for the entire island. And as we specified in the master plan, we anticipate that being a phased approach. You have a master site development plan. It's essentially a preliminary site plan for the entire thing. Won't take it to final. It won't take it to a construction document that you can issue for building, for construction, for bidding, but it will take it to a preliminary stage where you can estimate costs.
Okay. And just so we've had conversations about Waste giving us the northern tip phase 1.
Right.
There's been no conversations about any other portion of the island?
No, that's something they've been very clear that it could be a couple decades before the rest of the island comes to Falls.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I wasn't clear on, and then you mentioned it, Mr. Rosina, and I thought it was interesting and worth noting. You said the economic. Used a term economic, not feasibility study.
Impact analysis.
Right. So essentially what this would do, and I think just if I'm remembering your words wrong, just let me know. This would project out what the costs would be for the township to maintain this site, but it would also project out the amount of money that could be brought into the site through various activities that could be going on there or we could do.
The analysis that we've looked at to date, based on some of the DVRPC models that are out there, would account for benefits to the town overall. It's not just limited to this island, but the improvement of this island and the opening up of public space on this island and public improvements, not just the revenue immediately from that, but the savings to by having that resource available. There's healthcare benefits. There's a lot of benefits that also get that counted towards that, that are ultimately benefits to the town and to the community.
So in other words, I know, and we've talked a lot about this, and now we're, I guess, officially a bird town. We know that we're on the Eastern Flyway, and there's birds that are always flying back and forth, and people that are bird watchers, and I'm learning more and more that it's a pretty, it's a much bigger group than I thought it was before. If they're coming into Falls Township because they hear there's this site to watch, this study you're looking at would look at how many people are coming in, potential impact on restaurants in the area, hotels in the area,
That's correct.
Gas stations, anything else that they might be stopping at. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
So is that done just on phase one or both?
That's
It's
everything.
done on the entire island.
Now, what about
It's done.
just phase one?
It'll be phased. It'll be stepped.
Right.
It'll be studied on the entire island. Then it will be broken up by phase.
Okay, so we can look at it and say overall could be X, and phase one it's Y.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Again, the overall amount we're looking at with the master site development plan, the overall number is $315,000. Of that, $92,000 is state money, and most of the remainder is county money. The township has almost $1 million in county open space money that can be used not just on purchasing open space, but on improving and maintaining open spaces and passive recreation like this. The amount of money in actual sort of tax dollars it's considerably lower than $315,000. Other comments or questions from board members before we open for a public?
Yeah, on that issue, the 50% match to the grant, to the planning grant, can we also take that from our open space funds from the county, or does that have to be a separate pot of money?
Not sure of that.
The only restriction on the state match is it can't be other state money.
Other state money.
It can be county money, it could be federal money, it could be foundation money. Anywhere you can find it, you can match it.
That county money, I think, originally came from the state, did it not? Or
No, it's a
that's
county.
That's correct. I'm wrong on that. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's open. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other Mr. Galloway, any questions or?
No more questions.
Okay. All right. I imagine there's some public comment. So, motion to open public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Dell?
Andrew Dell, Falls Township. As you know, I've been against this Biles Island plans from the get-go. I don't believe that we're going to have to book the Sheraton for all the bird watching people. They're going to be swarming to Falls Township to help pay for this new park. Our revenues are down from waste management this year, correct? We have less money coming in this year. I mean, I think trash has been down, right?
This year, money's actually up a little bit. Hurricane Sandy, unfortunately.
Is the forecast for next year to be down?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at is we keep opening up these new little projects that, as Mr. Mariani put it, are for the few, not the many. And we got the boat ramp. We have, now I like the Township Park. I have nothing against the Township Park. For us to open up a secondary park that is for bird watching, and it's going to cost us eventually a fair amount of money. At this point in time, I know you have grants. I know we're not doing the whole island, but Waste Management's running an operation there, and now you guys have to divide this island with a fence. If I remember correctly, we have to split this island up with a fence, which then gets torn down and thrown into garbage. I just don't see why we're going down this road right now. We have so much available in this township at this point in time. Can't we just wait? I mean, can't we just wait 10 years, 15 years? I'm not against taking this property. I'm not against doing something with it in the future, but we have a township building to build, okay? You don't know what that's actually going to cost. We have a lot of projects going on right now, millions and millions of dollars, and you're going to open up this can of worms down there at the end of Tyburn Road that really doesn't need to be ventured down at this point in time. I'm not against doing something with it in the future when we know better our economic picture of the township and what's left in the coffers after we build this building and finish all our road programs and do everything that we've been doing in this township. But to go and open up another park at this point in time, I think is a colossal waste of money and time, and I don't want to see it happen. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mariani?
Do a quick review and see if I'm correct. ACT Engineers was hired at the cost of $82,350 to develop a master plan for Byles Island. The board voted to spend up to $420,000 on engineering costs and other expenses to complete the DCNR grant.
Mr. Mayor, you're inaccurate with that, and you said that before. We applied for up to $400,000 worth of money.
Okay.
We didn't get that. We only got, we only got $92,000.
All
So
right.
we did
So
not.
you got $92,000 for that.
We didn't spend $92,000, Mr. Mariani.
Pardon me?
We did not spend $92,000. We applied. You're saying
Applied.
you're saying
Okay.
we spent $400,000. We did not spend $400,000.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
I said you voted to spend up to.
Yes,
if you
exactly.
would have gotten it, but you didn't. Okay. Well,
Okay.
Let that one go by so we don't stand here all night arguing over that. But there was another $220,000 to do the designing and the permitting for Byles Island North. Now, if you confirm that we're going to get $940,000 grant allowed for open space, then as I understand it, that could never be used for anything else. And in addition to that, you would have to provide matching funds of 25%, which is $235,000. Now, Byles Island, as I see it, and as you name it, is a recreational environmental program. It was designed to include 4 phases, not 1, 4. Whether the other 2, 3, 4, whatever it is decades from now, I don't know, and I am concerned as a taxpayer, it's not going to be that far away. I'm concerned as a taxpayer of phase 1. Now, the whole project includes bird watching, fishing piers. We're building one, we're going to build another 2. We're going to have 3 fishing piers in falls. Boat ramps, more boat ramps, marina, expanded marina, etc. That's got to get us into millions of dollars in expenditures. It doesn't create wealth. This whole thing consumes wealth. Now, if there's such a great investment, as everyone's pointing out, how many private sector people have come to us and say, hey, we want to be part of this. We want to get involved. We want to open businesses there. I haven't heard of any. Thus far, I haven't seen any visible means of support for this whole adventure. How do you plan to maintain this without exhausting township resources and our future income? Do we have a spending limit on what we're going to do? Now, it doesn't take a genius to see what happens when the number of township commitments outgrow the economy which must support them. You know what happens? Stockton, Fresno, Detroit, etc. Mr. Snipes was right on, hit the nail right on the head a while back. He said, there is an end point. Sir, you couldn't be more right. There is an end point to this money that we're getting from waste management. We're already committed to a possible $15 million cost to replace this building. And we're going to go spend millions of dollars on what? Recreation? Nah. This to me is nothing more than a radical environmental program. That's exactly the way I see it. Now, Ms. Besky said that bird watching, and you seem to think that you probably agree with her, is going to create an economic engine. Well, I think that's good. If that happens, then the environmentalists that we can give it to will be able to afford all 4 phases. Now, there's plenty of room here tonight for leadership. And I'm telling you, the past is dead. The future isn't born yet. What we have right now is the present. And I'm telling you, that's going to determine our future. When you exercise your vote, use your independent judgment. Don't be influenced by any person, persons or groups, your commitment has got to be to the residents and the future of this township. I believe a vote to pursue this project is going to have consequences of crushing burdens on our future. If there's any project that outdoes all the other projects that we've committed to that will kill this township and bankrupt it, here it is right here. We're talking about millions of dollars. I'm telling you, Biles Island is a beast. It's a volcano. And I'll tell you, if you had a human sacrifice, it's not going to satisfy what you're going to need to complete this project. Don't get involved with it. Walk away from it. Let it go. It's bad news for this township.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? See no hands. Open the motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Other board comments, questions?
Yeah, I had one. The 930,000 for open space?
4945.
Yeah, that 9 plus. That's expiring, right?
At the end of next year.
End of 2014.
Right.
Okay. And also, just to clarify, I think Mr. Snipes asked if we can apply some of that money towards the 25% match.
Toward the
50%
I mean, the
match.
50%?
grant, yes.
Since we don't own it, can we apply? Can we?
It's one of the issues. I know Mr. Rosina is going to be, or I don't know if he has or not yet, talked to the county, and that's one of the issues we want to look at in terms of accessing the county funds.
I am in communications with the county about that at this point. We can apply. They can't close the grant. So the grant funding would not come to the township until ownership was in place. But we can apply. When we just have to itemize, we need the itemized costs developed here to be able to put that application together.
Right, but I think the question was, can we use that money and apply it to the 50% match for the DCNR grant?
Yes.
And the answer is no, because we don't own it,
Not
right?
till next year.
Not till next year.
But we're looking to spend this money soon.
Well, we're authorizing the expenditure. I mean, Mr. Rosina, one of the things he'd mentioned to me was that if we can't access the money, until next year, certainly there's work that can be done at a pace that's just, the bulk of the money spent won't happen until roughly next year. But there's still some work that can be done that will be covered by some of this cost, some of the grant, and I guess some of the money that we had allocated as well. So something could be done.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not clear on what we were looking to spend and when. So
right. I think the way I've looked at it, Mr. Rosina can correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of an authorization to spend at some point, over the next year or so, do these 13 particular tasks for the amount specified here, $315,000. And that's something that can be done at a pace that follows along with the money as it's coming from the county, as it's coming from the state, and it's coming from us. It doesn't mean that it's going to be $315,000 spent by, this time, or 2 months from now.
Okay.
Right.
That's correct.
Right. So. Concerns. I've heard the concerns, and they're the concerns that we've heard for a while from residents about the project. I thought it was interesting, and listening to Mr. Rosina and the way he put it, I thought it was worthwhile to listen to what he actually had to say. Whether we do work on Biles Island next year, 2 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, this work will still have to be done. It could be done now, it could be done in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, but it's going to have to get done. If it gets done and we decide next year not to do anything because of costs, we put it aside, but the work is done. And if 5 years from now we decide to move forward on it, we take it back out, we know it's finished. It's done. We don't have to redo it. It's already completed. Knowing that costs go up, it's going to be cheaper to do it now than it would be to do it in the future. Part of the complaint from one of the speakers was that it wouldn't generate any money, but if you were listening, Mr. Rosina specifically said that it was something that was going to study how much money was going to go into this, how much money it would cost to maintain it, how much money it was going to bring in. And I happen to use bird watching as just an example. And obviously that was something that a couple of people picked up on, is me saying that bird watching was going to pay for the entire thing, which is idiotic for them to interpret that. Yes, it is. So, Mr. Mariani, so it's very clear that there are a lot of opportunities here. We've heard a couple of times about doing things for the many and not the few. However, I think if we take a look at all the things we've done, we're hitting the many. We're trying to create recreation in this township that accommodates the widest possible range of people. And this is another example of that. I think we knew going into this, Mr. Dents and Mr. Snipes and I, when we first started looking at it, that it would be a little difficult to get people to understand what was at about Biles Island. I know Mrs. Besky and Mr. Rosina, we talked about it as well. And even when Mr. Rocco came on and Mr. Galloway came on, we understood it would be difficult for people to sort of get a grasp of the potential out there, because it is a piece of property that virtually no one in this township has really ever been to, unless you've worked for Waste Management. Or you've been on a couple of the tours that we've run out there. But there are a lot of potentials out there for it. And I think, this again is work that has to be done. This is an island that's coming to us. I mean, we're getting it. It's not something that we're deciding to purchase for millions of dollars. This is something that is coming to us. It was negotiated back in 2005. So we have to decide now what we're going to be doing with this property. And one of the reasons for moving on it goes back to our partnership with Waste Management. That they stated to us that they could do work on the island in such a way that would benefit us and make it easier for us to transition onto it. Part of the reason why the Township Park, which everybody, a lot of people hated at the time it was being built, and a lot of people spoke out against, saying it was a waste of money. And now it's incredibly popular, and I hear from people all over the county what a wonderful park it is, let alone people from Falls Township. But part of the reason why it was so expensive to build that park was because it was just left as a wasteland. And I think Mr. Snipes and I both had conversations with Waste Management people who said, if we had known that Falls Township was going to do a park there, we could have done a lot of different things that would have made it easier to transition, rather than just sort of leaving it as a wasteland. There's different things they could have done in terms of their operations. And so they made a point to say to us, if you're going to do something at Biles Island, we can work with you and make it easier for you and make it so that, it's cheaper for the township to do. Moving forward on this, IC commits us only to do the work that's in front of us. And it is not a short timeline. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And this is work that can be done as slowly as we'd like it to be, or as quickly as we'd like it to be, as the costs and as the income of this township dictates. And that's something that ACT obviously works for us. If we tell them that we'd like them to spend X amount of money by this time next year, then that's what they'll do. And it's that simple. It doesn't commit us to doing anything beyond that. It's very likely we could look at the results of this and decide, this is a whole lot more money than we thought it would be. But we haven't put any shovels in dirt yet, and so we haven't really committed anything. So those are my thoughts. I thought it was important to sort of answer some of the criticisms that we've received, but those are my thoughts on this. And if there's any other comments or questions.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Just in terms of dollars and cents and what's before us this evening, are we correct in understanding that all of the cost of funding what's before us tonight is going to come from either the DCNR grant or the county money? That's already been awarded to us, so we're not spending anything out of our own funds.
Well, there's matching. There's obviously we have to match 25% of whatever the county money
from the
is.
county money.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that seems like to leverage the amount of money that we've gotten through DCNR into the county, the amount that we'll have to put in is well worth it for the amount of money we're leveraging. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
No, I just look at it again as what you said about the township park and what Waste could have done for us, and I think I mentioned it once before to you. I just see it as performing our due diligence, and for the future supervisors in the next coming decades, anyway.
Right.
You'll still be here.
Right. And it is, no matter who's sitting in these seats or whatever seats they're sitting in at some point in a different building, I guess, this work will be finished. There'll be work they will not have to do. It'll be done. And they can do with it what they will, just like we can do with it what we will. So, any other comments or questions?
I have none.
Okay. Right, so before us this evening, we're looking to authorize the master site development plan in an amount not to exceed $315,000, awarding it to ACT Engineers, according to the letter sent to us July 8th, 2013. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Mrs. Pull?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right, we're going to take a short recess. We'll come back with our agenda on number 9. Okay, we're going to reconvene our meeting before 9 o'clock. We're up to agenda item number 9, which is discussion of the gun buyback program, which we have talked about before. And we've had some discussions in the meantime with our police department. We've asked them to kind of put together a plan. And board members have discussed an amount of money that we might be comfortable expending on the whole project, on the whole idea. Not just the purchase of weapons, but also obviously all the staff, the police officers who are going to be here for that event, all of their salaries, et cetera, would be encompassed in this one amount of money. I see Mr. Lieutenant Ward's here to talk about some of the details and how this would work, and also give us some ideas about. I guess we've talked about how Ben Salem did it, and we're going to take some other ideas and some lessons learned, I guess, from them. So,
we have our plan in place. We know what we want to do. We just have to pick a date. We're trying to coordinate that with Mr. Gray to find out what date's the best. We know what kind of manpower we're going to need. I believe Mr. Gray gave me a number of what we're going to expend. I believe that'll be more than the amount that we're going to need. The thing that we're going to do a little differently than Ben Salem is we're not going to pigeonhole ourselves into a certain price for a particular gun. We're going to have our firearms experts there. If somebody just digs up a gun out of the ground that's been buried for 30 years and hands it to us, we don't want to give them, pigeonholed in saying we have to give you $150. We're going to see what the gun is and say we're going to give you $25, $30 for it, and they should be happy with that. And that way, that'll bring our costs down.
Okay. Yeah, I know that was one thing. I mean, talking with you and also Lieutenant Airy as well. That, as you said, Ben Salem pigeonholed themselves where they said anybody who brings in a hunting rifle, they're going to get this much money.
Yes.
And if you brought in a hunting rifle that was rusted and falling apart and
yes.
No trigger on it and everything else, you still got the amount of money.
Yes.
So we're creating sort of a separate category for basically inoperable junk weapons.
Yes.
Okay. Which, as you said, is something that'll bring down our costs. Let's see. I know we had talked a little bit about, I think some of the discussion was having a Saturday, probably looking toward October maybe.
We were looking at the month of October, and a Saturday would be the ideal day for our manpower-wise, and I think for the public.
Okay. All right. And it would be held here at the Township building?
Yes. We'd be utilizing, our plans are utilizing the old real estate office up front. We can have a queue, people coming in. Officers can be making sure that the weapons are cleared before they get into the parking lot, and then move right up there, and we'll have a series of tables inside.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions from supervisors? Mr. Galloway?
No, I'm looking forward to it. And I've heard all the discussions and what you've done, lessons learned at Ben Salem. And I hope it's a success. And thank you for your efforts.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes, it's the same. Thank you for organizing it. No other questions.
Okay. Mr. Rocco?
I think thank you is probably a good way to, good thing to say. Other than that, I know Mr. Harvey's worked with you guys on it, so logistically, it sounds like you have all your ducks in a row. So I'm confident that it'll be successful. Thank you.
I know a couple things we did. We're looking at categories of weapons, revolver, rifle, shotgun being one, semi-automatic, handgun being a second category, more expensive, assault rifle being the most expensive category, and a fourth category for just inoperable weapons, just junk weapons. But we are putting something else I think Ben Salem did not do, if I remember. We're putting sort of a restriction if you want to no more than 3 weapons per person. Essentially, so if someone comes here and they've got 10 weapons, 10 junk pieces, they're only going to get essentially paid for 3 of them.
Yes.
So that's something that it was also a little bit different, I think, that Ben Salem did not do. I think we're looking just in terms of money to expend when we talk about money for the weapons themselves, the staffing, I guess advertising as well. I know the reporter from the Courier-Times is here, and I'm sure she'll be writing an article, but we also can, I guess, look to do some things on the website and other things. I think we're looking at amount not to exceed, I know we talked about $20,000 or $25,000. What's the board comfortable with? Was it 25, I think was the number we settled on?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. I think Ben Salem, we've talked a lot about how much Ben Salem spent, but they did it over 2 weekends, and it was in the $30,000 to $40,000 range or something?
I don't have the exact number, but I believe that was between $25,000 and $30,000. I don't know if they counted their salaries into that, but they drew it from a drug forfeiture fund that they have, so it wasn't township money, it was federal money.
Right. And I know we did look at the idea of whether or not we could use the same kind of funding, but we're not involved in that program the way they are.
What they are, they're on the DEA task force. They have officers that are actually assigned in Philadelphia to a task force. So if they get a job and there's a seizure involved, whether it be a house or cash, Ben Salem gets a certain percentage of that money, let's just say 25% or whatever the total money is, and they put that in a segregated fund and they can use it for whatever they want.
Right. Yeah. And I talked with I think Chief Wilcox about that funding formula and method of funding, and one of the issues that we have is that when you assign an officer to a DEA task force, that officer basically is out of your control.
Yes, you assign them to DEA, and you have to give a commitment for 2 years, so you lose that officer for 2 years.
So that's something that we've just, we haven't necessarily wanted to do. So I'm trying to think if there's any other things I wanted to touch on. Now, but the plan we have, the operations plan here from the police department, as you can imagine, is very thorough. It's very well thought out. In terms of, as Lieutenant Ward said, table by table, different, a person progresses from one table to the next to the next. A lot of safety measures, as you can imagine, making sure that someone who's bringing a weapon in, the weapon is not loaded. Let's see. And again, this is something that, there's no way of telling, if someone who turns in a weapon, what would have happened with that weapon if they hadn't turned it in. There's no way of projecting that. There's no way of studying that. There's no way of analyzing that. There's no way of telling, whether or not that gun would have been found by a 6-year-old, whether or not it would have been taken to school because the kid thought it was cool, whether or not someone who was distraught over some issue, like the gentleman who went into Dick's earlier this year, would come across that gun and remember he had it or she had it and then use it for whatever purpose. There's no way of projecting that. And so I think this is something, I think Mr. Galloway said it's a public service that we can offer to people. And the way I see it, for people that have said that it wouldn't work, it's not going to be, no one's going to really turn much in, well then we haven't really spent any money. So, no. So either way, we get a lot of guns off the street, which is good, or we don't get very many guns off the street, in which case we haven't really spent any money. And so it should be really, I think it's an effort we should try. There really is not much we can do as a township in terms of gun safety other than do something like this and educate people. So, any other comments or questions from board members? Okay. I know there's going to be a couple public comment. Motion to open public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Public comment? Mr. Dell?
Andrew Dell, Falls Township. As I stated last time, you don't have to do a study. It is a waste of time. It's a waste of resources. You guys, I don't know if who's anti-gun, who's pro-gun. That's not even the point here. The point is you guys are going to get junk. You're wasting everybody's time doing it. More people get killed with a hammer than with an assault rifle. Okay? I mean, is there going to be a hammer buyback? I mean, does this make everybody feel good? I mean, I truly don't understand why you're wasting the police time, having a bunch of people come here giving you sawed-off shotguns with duct tape holding them together. It's not going to solve a thing, okay? If someone wants to commit a crime, they're going to find a weapon. If someone wants to hurt themselves, they're going to find a way. This does nothing but waste money. It's not a personal opinion, it's a fact. There's nothing, I'm not saying that some abstract way, maybe some person doesn't get killed with that a gun, but that person could kill themselves 20 different ways, or they could hurt somebody by hitting them in the head with a shovel. A violent person is going to use whatever means necessary to create that violent act, whether it's a gun, whether it's a knife, whether it's bare hands, whatever they have at their disposal, they're going to use. And for you guys to take $25,000, $10,000, $15,000, whatever the case may be, it's not doing anything. I think it would be more good to spend that money with maybe the police department when they go and talk about drugs at the schools, the DARE program. Maybe they talk about guns. Maybe they talk about gun safety. Maybe you get involved with the NRA and have some sort of safety program. If you come across a gun, this is what you should do. This is who you should call. This is who you should talk to. But no problem with education, but to sit here and buy back garbage guns from people for 150, 200, even 50 bucks, I believe is a colossal waste of resources and a waste of the police department's time. They got better things to do. Thank you.
Mr. Mariani?
During the last discussion, I happened to mention the John Hopkins study, and that study is not ridiculous, Mr. Chairman. It's factual. Now, a report by the National Academy of Science called Firearms and Violence, a critical review, reported, it is the committee's view that the theory underlying gun buyback program is badly flawed, and the empirical evidence demonstrates the ineffectiveness of this program. National Center for Disease Control said that accidental deaths due to misuse of firearms ranks dead last, that you're 20 times more likely to have an accidental death by falling off of something. Now, what is ridiculous are some of the statements that I hear, like you're more likely to be killed by a gun if you have one in a house, and you're more likely to have an accident with a gun if you have one in a house. Look, you're more likely to get into an automobile accident if you have a car in your driveway and you misuse it. You're more likely to die in a car accident if you have a automobile in your garage and you misuse it. The key is misuse. It's not the object. Now, the gun control zealots, these people that want to take all these guns off the street, I think give an advantage to criminals because they reduce the number of law-abiding citizens owning a firearm. The average people, like some people on this board, will tell you will simply call the police. The average time for a 911 call or response is about 8 minutes. That could be the longest 8 minutes that you have. I think that people that are in favor of these kinds of programs get behind these kinds of ideas. I wonder if they ever considered they're creating a pool of potential victims because you want to disarm everyone. Now, if you're truly interested in effective and productive program to prevent accidental deaths and reduce crime, why don't you take part of this $25,000 and use the money to fund professionally instructed free classes for Falls residents on firearm safety, or give a coupon to every resident toward the purchase of an approved gun safe, or $10,000 or $10 toward a gun lock. Use the money wisely. So I think the time of our police resources would be better used if they were investigating crimes and locking up criminals. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? See no hands. Motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So at this point, what we'd be looking to do is to direct the Falls Township Police Department to move forward with their plans, begin advertising, and just basically give them the go-ahead, the authorization to run this program at the cost we talked about. If that's the will, if that's the desire of the board. We've had obviously a couple members of the public who have repeatedly spoken out against this program. So just
So I would move that we move ahead. Should we put in a particular dollar amount of up to 25,000?
I think all the other details with respect to the exact date, you're still working that out with the police department. But authorizing the funds so that you can advertise and they can move forward makes sense.
Right. And so that would...
So I'd make a motion that we authorize the expenditure up to 25,000 for the gun buyback program.
Okay. And that would permit the police department to move forward. They wouldn't have to come back before us to seek any further approvals. They just, whatever date they pick, that's the date it is, and they'll just run it. Okay, so there was a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, Lieutenant Ward is going to come back up here because we are purchasing some equipment for the police department through a casino grant. Mr. Gray?
Yes, Lieutenant Ward has secured a casino grant for the purchase of equipment for the Falls Township Police Department. Total amount of the grant is $55,129. Lieutenant Ward is here tonight to explain the purchase and the items on the list.
What we would like to purchase is some updated safety equipment for the combined SWAT team between Bristol Township and Salem Falls Township. What we're asking for, similar to the vest that I have here, the SWAT team has a much upgraded vest than this, but it still is limited to handgun and shotgun rounds. Since the war, the technology has leapfrogged ahead, and there are vests now that will stop rifle rounds, assault weapons, M4s, AK-47s, up to .308 caliber rounds. So what we're asking is to update our vests to those vests. That would be 20 vests. The plates themselves would be $20,000, 400. The actual carriers, the vest carriers, would be $15,600. Along with that purchase, we were looking to get uniforms that are all the same for all three teams. Right now we have different uniforms. We want to try to look more uniformly. We approached the RDA, and they approved that also in the grant, so that's $4,400. We looked at all the rest of the equipment we had and what we were lacking. What we're lacking right now is we have Amtrak SEPTA rail lines that run through the township, also through Bristol Township, also through Ben Salem, and also SEPTA buses and buses that go to Sesame Place. We have no ladders currently right now that can get up to those windows. There is a company out there that will specifically manufacture ladders to our height. So we're asking for 3 of those ladders, which will come out to $1,200. And the remaining balance is approximately $11,000. We were able to get upgraded computer equipment for our detective division to be able to download cell phones and computers. with some of the equipment we purchased with the last grant, Officer Kaufman was able to work with the county on 3 homicides, and one of the convictions in the homicides was specifically on the work he did with the cell phones. He was able to show the location of the suspect the entire time, which destroyed his alibi, and he was convicted on that. So we're upgrading that, which is a big leap for our department with that. But all this money is going to come out of the casino grant.
Okay. All right, comments or questions for Lieutenant Ward?
None.
No? Mr. Rocco?
I have none, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Galloway stepped out for a minute. Lieutenant Ward, as people know, has really been the most active, most successful member of the department when it comes to getting grants. This is the second one. I guess when you got one last year. I'm not sure we're going to do 3 in a row, but
I don't know if I can pull a hat trick on that.
Never hurts to ask, I guess. Mr. Galloway, questions or comments for Lieutenant Ward?
No questions.
No. One thing I thought was interesting, and now that the one speaker who talked about how many people die with hammers instead of assault weapons. Part of the reason why we're spending $20,000 on tactical vests and almost $16,000 on protective plates and all the other kinds of special SWAT gear is not because of hammers. But this is an impact on taxpayers that people often forget about. It's one thing to listen to the zealots who have the conspiracy theories about whether or not certain types of weapons should be allowed or not allowed. But this is an impact. This is townships like ours, communities like ours. We're fortunate that we have people like Lieutenant Ward who can get grants like this. We're fortunate that we have the financial ability to provide our officers with equipment that we can. There's a lot of police departments that can't provide this kind of equipment, even with grants. They can't afford to do it. And yet their officers still have to be protected against those kinds of weapons and that kind of ammunition that's out there. And so that's something that has an impact on taxpayers, state level, local level. And so, there is an impact, a negative impact on everybody, when you talk about the prevalence of certain kinds of weapons. So we're looking at then looking to authorize the purchase of the equipment listed here in the letter of 8/15/2013, total amount of $55,129. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
All right. You're staying for the next one, too?
Yes.
All right. Put in your overtime here. All right. Item number 11 is consider a resolution for the hiring of a new police officer. Mr. Gray?
Yes, the board is asked to consider a resolution for the hiring of a new police officer. The candidate's name is Nicholas Felipe. If he were to be considered for approval by the board, his badge number would be 113 and the swearing-in date would be September 5th. The board is asked to consider this resolution to hire a new police officer.
Okay. Mr. Philippi has not been through the training yet, correct?
No, he would be sworn in at Judge Visosky's office on September 5th. He will start the police academy on September 9th.
All right. And how many months is it?
Approximately, we will have to wait about 10 months before he's done the academy, and then he would have to go another 16 weeks through our in-house training.
Okay. All right. And this is for an officer who has retired? Correct?
Yes, this is a vacancy. This is not adding to our manpower. This is just bringing it back up to where it was. This is going to be replacing Corporal Bray, who retired last year.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions for Lieutenant Ward? This resolution 13-23?
23.
Okay. Mr. Rocco?
I have none.
Okay. Mr. Snipes?
No, none.
Mr. Galloway?
No.
No? Okay. All right. No comments or questions. Is there a resolution? Is a motion to approve resolution 13-23 hiring Nicholas Philippi to the Falls Township Police Department?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Congratulate Mr. Philippi and his father. Item 12, consider adopting an ordinance, amendment to the Records Ordinance, Chapter 206, Section 5B, subsection 4. Ms. Gallagher, who just stepped out, apparently?
She stepped out.
Worked a lot on this. Are you going to be okay doing this, Mr. Clark?
I may have some trouble, but I'll try to fake it. No, I think I understand what Ms. Gallagher has worked on.
All right.
Essentially, we are attempting...
Use your microphone, please, Mr. Clark.
We are fixing another loophole in our records ordinance. We encountered a problem last year where certain companies that were on the towers list would be incorporating under a couple of different names. You could have Harvey Towing and Bob Harvey Towing and Robert Harvey Towing. So you would have 3 different companies, and you'd be on our towers list 3 times. You'd essentially be using the same drivers, the same equipment, and the same yard. We attempted to deal with it a while back by changing that you have to be incorporated separately, you have to have certain differences, and this is now dealing with the fact that towers cannot share the same yard. So we believe that this will stop that loophole in the ordinance from allowing what it's not intended. It's intended to allow multiple companies to be on our towers list, not just one company incorporated under 5 different names.
Lieutenant Ward, I'll ask you, the situation we run into is that somebody's vehicle breaks down or there's an accident, and our police department, if they don't have their own tower to call, if they don't know anybody, if they're not in AAA, something, they rely on us to call a tower. Why is it a problem to have essentially one company with 3 different names showing up all those times on our tower list?
As far as operational for us, it doesn't matter, but it's not fair to the other towers because that one company is getting 3 bites of the apple when they are only getting 1. That's where our problem's coming in. The other towers are coming in complaining to us. That the whole tower situation in the past 2 years has been nothing but a headache for us. Complaints almost once a week. It's like trying to keep unruly kids happy. It's been a nightmare. People, if you have an accident and we can't clear that roadway in a specific amount of time, let's say 30 minutes, and you have no access to a tower, then that's when we call the Township towers, and then we do that list. And believe me, they know exactly when they're on call, and if they are squeezed out in any way, we're going to hear about it. So this problem popped up at the end of the year, and I can see their point, the other towers' points, that 20 years ago we only had 5 towers. I believe we're up to 8, 9, maybe 10 right now. So the ones that have been historically here at Falls Township are getting squeezed out more and more and more and more. Right. So a lot of the smaller places depend on the towing.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate your very good, very clear explanation. Comments or questions, either for Lieutenant Ward or for Ms. Gallagher, now that she has rejoined us to help Mr. Clark, regarding this ordinance or change in the ordinance. Mr. Rocco?
Oh, no, I have none.
Mr. Snipes?
No question.
Mr. Galloway?
No.
No, and this has been advertised actually more than the required amount of time, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and this would be ordinance 13-5. Okay, public comment? See no hands. Is there a motion then to approve ordinance 13-5?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right. Okay, item number 13. Is consider authorizing notice of intent to award a bid for a fishing pier at the Falls Township Community Park Lake. Mr. Gray?
Township received a letter from Mr. Sullivan at T&M Associates dated August 16th in regard to the Community Park Fishing Pier. T&M has reviewed the bids submitted to Falls Township that were publicly opened on August 16, 2013 for this project. One bid was received. Bidder's name was Loftus Construction. Base bid $216,000, alternate number one $61,000. Based on the bid evaluation, Loftus Construction is the lowest responsive bidder for both the base and the base bid and alternate number one. Due to the project budget, it is recommended that the Board of Supervisors reject both the base bid and alternate number one. The board is asked to consider this at this time.
Okay, so all right, I guess the question for Mr. Sullivan came in much higher than we budgeted. Any thoughts about why that is?
I'm not sure that I have any real thoughts, Mr. Chairman. Some of the items, the asphalt walkway of 13 square yards at $300 a square yard. When we do pave our streets, it's about $20 a square yard. So I'm not sure what that number is all about. The concrete access ramp, $15,000. Our costs in the road program are about $70 a square yard, which means that would be a 320-foot sidewalk. But in reality, it's no more than 30 feet. I don't think it's that long. The cost for framing and decking is well beyond what we thought it should be, over $123,000 for those two items. We had about 7 or 8 plan holders. We only received one bid. We did contact one other bidder who said he couldn't find anyone to drive the piles, but his idea of the cost would have been somewhere around what we thought it should be, around $60,000 or so, which is what the budget is.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean, some of this, as you said, essentially, framing and basically building a deck. Was it 500 square feet?
590 square foot wooden deck made out of pressure treated wood.
Right.
Their price was $50,000.
$50,000 for a 590 square foot deck of pressure treated wood sounds a little bit high. Unless all the screws are gold plated, I guess, maybe, or something. I don't know. But yeah, so for whatever reason, this company, has this company ever bid anything before with us? I don't necessarily recognize the name.
I think they bid some of the dredging at one point, and they were much higher than the other bidders that we had.
We don't know anything about them. Maybe they're just a small operation or something.
I think they're a fairly large operation based in New Jersey.
Okay.
This may be way too small for them, but they took a flyer, I guess.
All right, comments or questions from board members? Again, looking to reject this bid. I guess we'd have to ask what the next step is. Comments or questions from Mr. Sullivan?
That was it. The next steps, if you had a...
Yeah, what do we do next?
We'd be looking for you to authorize us to go out to rebid. We'll contact the other plan holders and give them maybe a little more time to find subcontractors if necessary.
Okay.
I had one question about the location. Where were you thinking it would go?
It's right at the current boat launch area, right next to the skate park at the community park.
It would just shoot out to the right?
Yeah, it's to the right of the current boat launch.
Okay.
If you're facing the lake. Yeah. So, the comments or questions? No? Public comment? See no hands. All right, is there a motion then to reject the bid for the Falls Township Community Park Fishing Pier?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And number 14, consider authorizing notice of intent to award bid for 3 Arches historic building renovations. Mr. Gray.
Yes. Township received a letter from...
Mr. Harvey,
yes.
Perhaps we should go back to 13 and authorize rebidding.
I apologize.
Yeah, and then the next one, I think you may want to do this.
All right, same thing. All right, so is there a motion to authorize the rebidding for the fishing pier at the lake?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Go ahead, Mr. Gray.
Township received a letter from T&M regarding 3 Arches historical building renovations. T&M has reviewed the bids submitted to the Township that were publicly opened on August 16th for this project. 2 bids were received. The first was from R.C. Lignini, base bid $112,618. Second bid, Premier Builders, $129,520. Based on the bid evaluation, RC Legnini Company is the lowest responsive bidder. Due to the project budget, it is recommended that the Board of Supervisors reject all of the submitted bids.
Okay. Mr. Sullivan, any thoughts on...
August 16th was a tough day for bid openings here in Falls Township. There are a couple factors here. We had a pre-bid with the plan holders, and some of the scope was amended, and apparently that drove the price up a little bit higher than we thought it might. Plus, there seemed to be a little confusion as to the scope of some of the items in the bid, specifically exterior architectural, woodwork, and repair and paint. Two prices, one was $52,000, the other was $62,000. We were thinking more of just fixing the rake boards, the fascias, and some of the molding around the building, and then painting that, which wouldn't have been anywhere near that much. We're looking more to, I think what happened was the contractors included all of the windows repair and sash repair in that number, and that's well beyond what our budget was. So the choices at this point are to either stick with the same scope, perhaps go out and rebid later in the year and maybe add some budget to this project, or what we might be able to do is change the scope and to a point where we go below the threshold for public bids and try to get something done prior to the anniversary that's coming up in October. Try to get the roof done and maybe the basement door at least.
Okay. All right, yeah, I think there's a plan right now for there to be a 300th anniversary celebration for Three Arches in mid-October. So I think I think one of the things we should consider is maybe trying to get this done, as you said, maybe going out on a smaller scale to get some of the more important work done sooner. That's something that can be done without actually having to bid if it falls below 18.5, 18,000.
18.3, I think.
18.3. Yeah. If it comes in below that, we don't actually have to bid. We just have to get 3 quotes.
And we think we can do that in relatively quick fashion. Perhaps by the end of the month, we can have it out to at least 3 contractors that were plan holders, and get that evaluated and ready for your meeting, either September 3rd or probably the second meeting is more like it.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions from board members? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
No, I think the the plan to do just a couple of the things makes sense until we figure out how to kind of rebid this.
Mr. Rocco?
No questions.
Okay. All right, so obviously the first thing we have to do is to make a motion to reject the bids as received.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and the second would be to authorize the township engineer to change the scope of the project and try and find 3 quotes at under the $18,300 threshold. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Item 15 is consider adopting ordinance amendment revising Chapter 168 Parks. There's a few changes on this. Two words essentially added since the last time we advertised it, which does not represent a significant change. So we're going to just approve this hopefully this evening. Ms. Gallagher?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you noted, there's 3 changes in this ordinance. The first adds kayaks and paddleboards to the list of approved watercraft for individuals to use in the community park lake. The second change does permit the use of windsurfing equipment. Previously, that had been excluded from the township park. And the third change prohibits vending absent prior approval from the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions from board members regarding the proposed changes to the ordinance? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
No, none.
Okay. Yeah, the restriction on vending we've talked about before. Windsurfing was banned from the park lake maybe 10 years ago, 11 years ago. The feeling was, I guess, maybe it was too dangerous, but we felt like currently the board feels that it's, if someone wishes to go out and they have the right equipment, they're wearing the right safety equipment, which they have to do anyway on the park, on the lake, then why shouldn't they just be allowed to make use of that? And adding paddle boards and kayaks, it was a little fuzzy, the definition, as to whether or not kayaks actually counted in terms of the type of craft listed. So we decided to put that in there, especially since there are obviously kayaks there. And paddle boards obviously didn't exist roughly 10 years ago when this ordinance was done. And so we have people using them. If they use them safely and they're wearing the proper safety equipment, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to go out and do that. It's becoming an increasingly popular form of recreation. I do know, in talking to some of the people around the lake, I guess one of the issues is, do we have the proper signage in terms of letting people know they have to wear personal flotation devices when they're on these craft? I think we have signs somewhere, but I don't know if
There is significant signage. I'm not sure whether or not it references flotation devices. It does indicate there's no lifeguard on duty and that use of any of these devices is at the individual's own risk.
Okay. All right. That's unrelated to this, but I figured it was in my head. I just mentioned it.
Sure.
Mr. Rocco, comments or questions?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Okay. Any public comment? See no hands. All right, then. Is there a motion to authorize or to approve ordinance 13-6? Right.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Item number 16 is consider authorizing advertisement for zoning change for 131 Old Oxford Valley Road. This would be changing it from NCR, Neighborhood Conservation Residential, to Planned Industrial Park District. Ms. Gallagher?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In March of this year, the township received an application from the current property owner to change the zoning on the property from NCR to Planned Industrial Park. The property is surrounded by several other parcels that are already zoned industrial park. And I believe one property that is currently also zoned NCR and is a residential property. The applicant appeared in front of the zoning hearing board for permission to use the property for a commercial use. He was granted that use variance with certain enumerated conditions. I did provide the board with a copy of the zoning hearing board's decision dated December 17th, 2012. If this change does go through, it would eliminate those conditions that were imposed by the zoning hearing board and would allow him to use the property consistent with the planned industrial park use, which does not have any of those restrictions. Some of those restrictions are outside storage, no retail sales, a maximum number of employees, no customers are permitted to visit the property. All those restrictions would be lifted if this goes through.
Okay. All right, and again, this is just authorizing advertisement, correct?
That's correct.
All right, that's why the applicant isn't here this evening.
And this has been in front of the Planning Commission, and I believe the Planning Commission did approve it. It has gone to the county, and the county has approved it already.
Okay. Yeah, currently, the gentleman runs a small operation that essentially fabricates aluminum gangplanks and walkways very similar to the ones that we have down at the boat ramp. It really isn't sort of, it's tough to call it industrial. It's not, he's not sort of creating the aluminum or anything else, or no smelting or anything else going on, but getting in aluminum pieces and fabricating them in gangplanks, and they go out. Let's see. We did meet, I guess, with the applicants a couple months ago.
Yes.
And he seemed, the property itself has actually been improved quite a bit over the past few years since he's taken over.
Significantly. Yes, it has.
Yes, it has. So, comments or questions for Ms. Gallagher regarding this authorization advertised?
No questions.
No.
None. I have none. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment? Just authorizing advertisement. All right. Is there a motion then to authorize the advertisement for zoning change for 131 Old Oxford Valley Road?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have 2 sets of minutes. Let's see. One I think we'll be able to pass, the other one I don't think so. June 18th minutes, we could not pass the last meeting because Mr. Dents was absent from that meeting, but he was here. And Mr. Galloway and Mr. Rocco were at the June 18th meeting, but they were not here at the last meeting.
Yep.
So essentially you need 3 supervisors to vote yes, and Mr. Snipes and I obviously would have voted yes, but now we have enough people here who are actually at this meeting to vote on it. Comments or questions for the June 18th, 2013, corrections even, from anybody?
Nope. No, they look good.
No? Okay, is there a motion to accept the minutes as presented for June 18th, 2013?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, the July 16th meeting, Mr. Rocco was not here, Mr. Galloway was not here, just myself, Mr. Dents, and Mr. Snipes. And so, Mr. Dents not being here to vote on this, we're going to have to put these off till next week, a couple weeks from now. All right. Okay, engineers report for July, dated August 16th, 2013. Mr. Sullivan, why don't you give us some highlights?
Just a couple updates, Mr. Chairman. The 2012 road program, all of the roads on the east side of Makefield Road are under binder, asphalt binder course being installed. They include Hedgerow Drive, Mark Drive, Paul Road, Winding Way, Kent Avenue, Rita Drive, and Louise Drive. Winding Way on the west side of Makefield and Hedgerow Turn, Hilltop Lane should all be paved by the end of next week. Right now, Midway is under stone course. All the binder courses should be paved on all those streets by the end of next week. Lions Drive will then have to be reconstructed. That's the one they haven't really started on yet. So that work will begin after Labor Day sometime. All of the work in the program and the wearing course should be installed by the end of September. The Senior Center addition is complete. All punch list items have been addressed. We still need to have PICO transfer the electric service from the old transformer to the new transformer. And there's a couple of issues in the parking lot with ponds that will be taken care of in the next couple of weeks. The Senior Center addition was given a use and occupancy on July 31st, 2013, one day ahead of schedule.
Okay, comments or questions for Mr. Sullivan regarding his report? Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, the learning experience, how are they making out? It looks like they got a lot going on over there.
They do. It's moving along okay. They keep having a couple of issues pop up that we don't expect. The retaining wall has not been approved, so they can't work on the side where the water tower is.
The back side, right?
Yeah, the storm sewer system is in place, and they've begun working on the building now.
Yeah, what's the construction duration on that?
Probably about 6 months.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty major.
Yeah.
They moved a lot of earth, right?
They have moved a lot of earth.
Yeah. And then Quaker Penn Park, I know we talked about fixing some of the efficiencies in the infield and the outfield, and I wanted to see what your thoughts were.
Well, my understanding that we're probably going to perhaps end fall ball a little bit earlier this year, so we make sure we get all the work done last 2 weeks in October.
Okay. Good. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Snipes?
No. Thank you.
Mr. Galway?
No.
Okay. The one question I had regarding the Senior Center, when I was out there with Mrs. Murphy and some people from Craft Source and also Mr. Medlar from your office, there was the idea raised of putting in a handrail at the curb line on sort of the one curb area near the corner of the building, if you're facing the building toward the left. Reason being for some of the people, there is obviously an ADA ramp that's in the front, but for some people who park a little further away, walking that extra distance just to get there and come back again, they wondered if they could, originally looking at putting in a curb cut, so they could have, an ADA ramp on that corner as well, but maybe a handrail just so they could have something to hold on to as they're stepping up on that curb. Is that something that, I know that, we were all sort of sitting there as we raised the idea. I don't know if that was something you were brought in the loop on or not.
Not at this time, but actually I'm in the loop now. But yeah, I'm sure that's something that we can do any way the senior center would like to have it done.
Okay. All right. Okay, that was the only question I had. Public comment? See no hands. Is there a motion to approve the July 2013 engineering report?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, bill list for August 20th, 2013 in the amount of $3,427,201.45. Of that, $3.4 million, about $1.3 million is for payroll. Another $230,000 for health insurance. I believe there's about $800,000 in road work. About $20,000 as we close out the senior center. Yeah, $750,000 for road work. $32,000 for the township building. About $74,000 for a new vehicle for public works. And we're getting the idea of some of the expenditures. I think we actually spent more on electricity than we did on legal fees this month. Not sure if that's good or bad, who that's good or bad for. But comments made a couple times earlier this evening, and I think it's interesting to look at this now about, that we're not doing enough for the majority of the people, that we're only doing little things to help little groups of people. Well, obviously we're employing a first-class police force that benefits everybody. We're paying for street lights that benefit everybody. We're repaving, reconstructing every road in the township, which benefits everybody. Certainly, we're providing what I hope anyway is a very, very good government for everybody in this township. And so, not to mention the parks that we have, which serve anybody who chooses to use them. And some people that just choose not to use them doesn't mean that there are people that shouldn't have them. Shouldn't have the option of using them. So, comments or questions regarding the bill list? Mr. Galloway?
No questions.
Mr. Snipes?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your comments. I think they're well spoken and appreciated. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, you had one on George Allen porta potties, I guess, there. Is our bill, is it always $2,270? Sorry, I don't have a page. It's somewhere.
It's all right.
Is that always our monthly? And if you don't know, if it is, maybe we can shop around.
Yeah, I could find out. We have the bills in the back. I could let you know after the meeting.
Yeah, that was the only thing that kind of jumped out at me. I mean, I know we have a lot, but that's all I have.
Okay. All right. All right, is there a motion then to pay the bills for August 20th, 2013, $3,427,201.45?
So moved.
Seconded.
Mrs. Pullen?
Mr. Galloway?
Yes.
Mr. Snipes?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rocco?
Yes.
Okay, we have, maybe we'll do, so we have one or two things for manager comment, but I know we have an executive session.
Although, Mr. Chairman, if you wanted to, the executive session, we're not going to require any action. So if you wanted to finish off with manager comment and board comment and then just adjourn the meeting and go into executive session, as long as we make sure to report on it at the beginning of the next meeting, we're okay.
All right, that sounds good. All right, so manager comment, Mr. Gray?
Yes, just one item tonight. Ms. Gallagher?
So the board will recall at the last meeting, the board considered a liquor license transfer application from the Fairless Hills Fire Company. It turned out that there was an error in the application that was submitted, and therefore the resolution that was passed as to the applicant's correct legal name should have been Fairless Hills Volunteer Fire Company. In front of you is a resolution to correct this error so that they can proceed to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board with their application with the state.
Okay. So the previous resolution said Farrell's Hills Fire Company.
Correct.
Not Farrell's Hills Volunteer Fire Company.
Correct.
So. Okay. This would be 1324?
That's correct.
All right. Is there a motion to approve 1324? Resolution 1324?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that it, Mr. Gray?
Yes, that's it. Thank you very much.
Jeez. Okay. All right. Board comment. Mr. Snipes?
No comment tonight, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for moving us through a long meeting, but we accomplished a lot. Thank you.
Mr. Rocco?
Yeah, just two quick things. Thank Lieutenant Ward and the police officer in the back for being here tonight. And also, I had the opportunity to go on the paddle boards this Saturday, or last Saturday rather, on the lake with my son. It was a great time. I think there's only 2 weekends left, but if you can get out there, it's pretty entertaining. So,
All right.
Give it a shot, Mr. Harvey.
No, I've got my kayak, so I'll be good with that. Mr. Galloway?
No comments tonight. Thank you.
Okay. I want to thank, obviously, the officers, the police department for all their work with the gun buyback as well, and all the professionals for their work for tonight's meeting. One of the things I keep, it always slips my mind, and it hit me tonight because we were talking about it a little bit. It's been raised in years past, and nothing ever happens with it. And I'm just throwing out the idea tonight, and we can have some discussion, I guess. But the community park has a pretty large lake, which has never been named. I don't know if it's something we just want to sort of think about over the next, few months. I mean, what kind of,
Lake Harvey, you were hoping for?
No. I guess somebody could be a wise guy and say it should be Snapping Turtle Lake, after the rumor of the killer snapping turtle from a couple of years ago. But just something to think about. It seems silly to keep calling it the community park lake, the community park lake, the community park.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just something pops in my head.
Yeah, you know what? The other thing I did notice is, and this is what's going to happen to Biles Island. We're going to call it Phase 1 for its eternity.
Right.
So, we refer to it Phase 1 side and Phase 2 side,
Right.
but I did notice there were signs up differentiating it.
Yes.
I think it called
Sports side,
yeah.
or lake side, or something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Projects going forward, I think they stick that name real quick.
Yeah, you're right.
So.
Yeah, you're right. So, and I guess school is rapidly approaching for happy parents and unhappy children. So be on the lookout. Obviously, a lot more school buses in the next couple weeks. A lot more kids who just got their driver's license and will now be driving themselves to school, which is also pretty scary. And ask people to keep safe, and these last few weeks of summer, watching the kids still out on the roads, getting darker earlier, but the kids are still staying out late until school starts. So keep your eyes open, please, and let's be safe. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.